The massive chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with nervous energy as representatives from 30 spacefaring civilizations gathered for an emergency meeting. The central hologram displayed a series of small ships, barely visible against the backdrop of space. Around the circular table, beings of all shapes and sizes whispered among themselves, their voices a mix of confusion and dismissal. Admiral Thex stood up, his tall frame casting a shadow across the holographic display. His deep blue scales gleamed under the chamber's lights as he pointed at the image. "Honorable council members," he began, his voice carrying across the chamber. "What you see before you is the latest species to achieve faster-than-light travel. They call themselves humans." A burst of laughter echoed through the chamber. Several council members didn't even try to hide their amusement. The ships in the display were tiny compared to the smallest scout vessels used by any council race. "Are we certain these are warships?" asked one of the representatives, wiping tears of mirth from his 4 eyes. "They look more like escape pods from our civilian vessels." Admiral Thex clicked a button, and the hologram changed to show more details. "Our long-range scans confirm these are indeed their primary military vessels. The largest is barely 1/5 the size of our standard cruiser. Their weapons appear to be primitive energy-based systems, though our sensors have difficulty getting clear readings." The council president, a tall figure with silvery skin, leaned forward. "Tell us more about these humans, Admiral. How long have they been in space?" "That's the most interesting part," Thex replied, changing the display to show a timeline. "They achieved spaceflight only 300 years ago. Most species take at least 1,000 years to reach this stage after discovering space travel. They're expanding at an unusual rate." This information caused a stir among the council members. Quick advancement usually meant aggressive expansion, a trait the council had learned to fear from past experiences. "What's their territory like?" asked another representative. The hologram shifted to show a map of human-controlled space. It was small by council standards, but the density of colonies and outposts was remarkable. Where most species established sparse, well-spaced colonies, humans had packed their territory with settlements, mining operations, and research stations. "They're efficient, I'll give them that," Admiral Thex admitted. "But their technology is clearly inferior. Their ships use primitive fusion drives, and their weapons are basic plasma-based systems. The only unusual readings we get are from their navigation and targeting systems, which seem more advanced than their other technology." The council president raised a hand for silence as murmurs filled the chamber. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" Thex straightened his uniform. "In my professional opinion, we should contain this species now, before they expand further. Their rapid growth rate is concerning, even if their technology is primitive. We've seen what happens when we allow aggressive species to develop unchecked." "Surely you don't suggest military action against such a weak opponent?" one representative asked. "It would be embarrassing." "Not military action," Thex clarified. "A show of force. We send a fleet to their home system, demonstrate our power, and offer them a choice: submit to council authority or face isolation. No species has ever chosen isolation once they've seen our might." The council voted quickly, with only 3 members opposing the motion. The humans would be given a chance to join the council, but only as a protectorate, not as equals. As the meeting ended, Admiral Thex studied the hologram of the human ships one last time. Something about them bothered him, but he couldn't place what. The designs were too simple, too compact. Every other species built their ships to showcase their power, with massive engines and impressive weapon arrays. These human vessels were almost modest in comparison. "Having second thoughts, Admiral?" the council president asked, noticing his hesitation. "No," Thex replied quickly, switching off the hologram. "Just wondering how many ships we should send to make our point. We don't want to appear too aggressive." "Take the Third Fleet," the president suggested. 200 ships should be more than enough to impress these humans." As Thex left the chamber, he was already planning the formation his fleet would use. It would be a routine mission, he thought. Show up, display their power, accept the human submission, and be home for dinner. He had no way of knowing he was about to make the biggest mistake of his career. Captain James Miller stood at the viewing window of Earth Defense Station 1, watching his fleet perform routine maneuvers. The sleek ships moved with perfect precision, their dark hulls gleaming against the backdrop of stars. Even after 15 years of service, the sight still filled him with pride. The quiet moment ended when the station's eyes spoke. "Captain, we're detecting a transmission from deep space. It's using standard galactic protocols." Miller turned away from the window, his expression serious. "Put it through to the command center. Alert the Joint Chiefs." Within minutes, the command center filled with Earth's top military leaders. The large screen showed a message in multiple languages, including a surprisingly accurate translation in English. As they read, the room grew increasingly quiet. The message was simple: submit or be contained. Admiral Wilson, a veteran of the Mars conflict, broke the silence. "They want us to give up our right to expand, to become their subjects." His voice carried disbelief rather than fear. "Look at the scan data attached to the message," Miller pointed out. The screen shifted to show images of the alien fleet heading their way. Their ships are enormous. The scans showed vessels that dwarfed anything humans had built. The smallest alien ship was 5 times larger than Earth's biggest carrier. The largest was the size of a small city. 200 ships, General Thompson noted, studying the data. "They're trying to intimidate us with size." She smiled slightly. "They don't understand us at all, do they?" Miller pulled up the specs of the alien vessels. "Their ships are big, yes, but look at their engine output, their maneuverability ratings. All that size comes at a cost." The room's atmosphere shifted from tension to focused interest as more data appeared on the screen. The alien ships' power systems were impressive but inefficient. Their weapons were strong but slow to target. Their shields were powerful but took time to adjust. "They're expecting us to be impressed by their size," Miller said. "They think we'll look at their massive fleet and surrender without a fight." Admiral Wilson walked closer to the display, his eyes narrowing. "How many combat-ready ships do we have available?" 50, Miller replied, "all equipped with the new AI targeting systems and quantum drives." 50 against 200, General Thompson mused. "They'll think we're insane." "No," Miller corrected, "they'll think we're weak. And that's exactly what we want them to think." The next hour was spent analyzing the alien fleet's approach vector and capabilities. Every new piece of data confirmed their initial assessment. The alien ships were powerful but sluggish, like giant spacefaring castles. "Look at their formation," Miller pointed out. "It's perfect for intimidation, terrible for actual combat. They're not expecting a fight." The Joint Chiefs agreed on a response to the alien ultimatum. It would be polite, respectful, and deliberately vague. They would ask for time to consider the generous offer while secretly positioning their fleet. As the others left to prepare, Admiral Wilson held Miller back. "James, you'll be leading our response fleet. Are you absolutely sure about this strategy?" Miller nodded. "Sir, they're making the same mistake everyone makes. They think bigger means better. They look at our ships and see weakness because that's what they expect to see. And what should they see?" "Nothing," Miller smiled. "Not until it's too late." The next day, Miller addressed the crews of the 50 ships chosen for the mission. Their vessels might have looked small compared to the alien fleet, but every crew member knew the truth. Years of fighting pirates in the asteroid belts had proven that size meant nothing when you couldn't hit your target. "They're coming to our home expecting to find primitive beings and primitive ships," Miller told his crews. "They think we'll be impressed by their size, intimidated by their power. They think we'll look at their fleet and lose hope." He paused, looking at the determined faces before him. "Let them think that. Let them believe their massive ships make them invincible. Let them laugh at our tiny fleet. His voice hardened. Because in 3 days, they're going to learn what humanity already knows. It's not the size of the ship that matters. It's how you use it. As the crews dispersed to their ships, Miller watched the alien fleet's approach on the tactical display. They were moving exactly as expected, slow, confident, and completely unprepared for what was coming. The trap was set. Now all they had to do was wait. Admiral Thex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Star Sovereign, watching as his fleet of 200 massive warships moved through space. The mood among his crew was relaxed, almost festive. Several officers were even placing bets on how quickly the humans would surrender once they saw the full might of the Council's fleet. "Admiral," his second-in-command called out, "we're picking up human ships on long-range scanners." Thex moved to the main display, expecting to see the humans' entire fleet rushing to defend their territory. Instead, he saw only 50 small vessels moving into formation. "Surely this can't be all of them," he muttered. "Scan again." "Scans confirmed, sir. Only 50 ships detected." The officer paused. They appear to be maintaining a defensive position near their outer colony. Laughter rippled across the bridge. One of the younger officers didn't even try to hide his amusement. "Their ships look like toys compared to ours. One of our destroyers could probably carry their entire fleet in its cargo bay." Thex zoomed in on the human vessels. They were indeed tiny, their sleek hulls barely visible against the darkness of space. The largest human ship was smaller than the Star Sovereign's main engine housing. "Open a channel to their commander," Thex ordered. "Let's get this over with quickly." The main screen flickered to life, showing the human in a dark uniform. Captain Miller's face showed no fear, no awe at the massive fleet facing him. If anything, he looked eager. "This is Admiral Thex of the Galactic Council Fleet," Thex announced grandly. "You have seen our power. Will you submit to Council authority?" Miller's reply was polite but firm. "Admiral, we appreciate the Council's invitation. However, we must decline." Thex blinked all 4 of his eyes in surprise. "You decline? Perhaps you don't understand your situation. My smallest ship could destroy your entire fleet." "Size isn't everything, Admiral," Miller replied calmly. "Would you like us to demonstrate?" Before Thex could respond, the human ships began to move. Their formation shifted with impossible speed, breaking into 10 groups of 5 ships each. The movements were so precise, so quick, that several of Thex's tracking systems lost lock on them. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, suddenly sounding worried, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the human vessels. Their power output it's much higher than our initial scan suggested." Thex frowned. Something was wrong. The human ships were moving far too fast for their size, executing maneuvers that should have been impossible. Their formation changes made no sense, until he realized they were positioning themselves precisely in his fleet's blind spots. "Battle stations," he ordered, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. "Raise shields. Power up weapons." The massive council ships began their defensive preparations, but they seemed sluggish compared to the darting human vessels. Thex watched in growing alarm as his perfectly ordered fleet struggled to track the smaller ships. "Sir, we can't get a weapons lock," his tactical officer reported. "They're moving too fast, and their electronic countermeasures are unlike anything we've seen." On the screen, Miller's calm expression hadn't changed. "Admiral, you made 3 mistakes today. Would you like to know what they were?" Thex didn't respond, too focused on trying to regain control of the situation. "First," Miller continued, "you assumed size equals power. Second, you thought our small ships meant primitive technology." He paused. "And third, you brought your fleet into range of our weapons before realizing your first 2 mistakes." As if on cue, Thex's sensors screamed warnings. The human ships had stopped their dance and were now in perfect firing positions all around his fleet. His massive ships, designed to fight enemies of similar size, couldn't bring their weapons to bear on the smaller, faster targets. "Last chance, Admiral," Miller said quietly. "You can leave now, and we can discuss terms as equals. Or you can stay and learn exactly why humanity's ships are the size they are." Thex looked at his tactical display in horror. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Council, was completely outmaneuvered by what he had dismissed as a tiny fleet. And the worst part was, the humans hadn't even fired a shot yet. The real battle was about to begin, and for the first time in his career, Admiral Thex wasn't sure he was going to win. The bridge of the Earth Fleet's lead ship, Swift Strike, hummed with focused energy as Captain Miller watched his plan unfold. The massive alien vessels now looked less like an unstoppable force and more like slow-moving targets against the backdrop of space. All ships reporting ready, Captain, his tactical officer, Lisa West, announced. "Eye targeting systems are fully synchronized." Miller nodded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. The alien fleet's massive ships were trying to reposition themselves, their movements slow and predictable. "Show them what our tiny ships can do. Begin attack pattern Delta." The demonstration began with a single human ship, the Thunderchild, breaking formation. It accelerated toward the nearest alien vessel, moving so fast that the alien tracking systems couldn't lock onto it. The Council ship, 10 times larger than the Thunderchild, fired its main weapons, but hit nothing but empty space. "Look at their weapon systems," West pointed out. "Maximum targeting speed of 0.3 rotations per second. Our ships can move 3 times faster than their guns can track." On the main screen, Admiral Thex's face showed growing concern as the Thunderchild performed a series of maneuvers that would have torn any Council ship apart. The human vessel spun, rolled, and changed direction instantly, its advanced inertial dampeners allowing it to ignore the physical limitations that restricted larger ships. "Time for the full demonstration," Miller ordered. "All ships, execute precision drill." What happened next left the alien fleet in stunned silence. All 50 human ships began to move in perfect coordination, their AI systems allowing them to perform maneuvers that no organic pilot could manage. They wove between the massive Council ships like schools of fish swimming through a forest of kelp. "Sir," West reported, hiding a smile, "we're picking up some interesting chatter from the alien fleet. They're trying to figure out how we're moving like this. They think we might be using some kind of advanced teleportation technology." Miller allowed himself a small grin. "Should we tell them it's just good engineering?" The truth was simple but revolutionary. While other species built bigger ships to house more powerful engines and weapons, humans had taken a different approach. They had focused on miniaturization, creating compact fusion reactors that produced more power than engines 10 times their size. Their weapons were small but precise, guided by AI systems that could make millions of calculations per second. "Incoming transmission from the alien flagship," West announced. Admiral Thex appeared on screen again, his earlier confidence completely gone. How are you doing this? Ships your size shouldn't be able to move like that. The power requirements alone would be impossible with your technology," Miller finished for him. "You see, Admiral, while the Council was building bigger ships, humanity was building better ones. Our engines are small because they don't need to be large. Our weapons are compact because precision matters more than size." As if to demonstrate, one of the human ships performed a perfect spiral around an alien cruiser, its movement so precise it looked like it was following an invisible track in space. The alien vessel's weapons couldn't even begin to track the smaller ship's movement. "But the most important difference," Miller continued, "isn't in our engines or our weapons. It's in how we think. Every ship in my fleet is connected through a quantum AI network. They don't just move together, they think together. Each ship knows exactly where every other ship will be at any moment. We don't need massive weapons when we can hit any target with perfect accuracy." The tactical display showed the alien fleet's predicament clearly. The human ships had taken position at key points throughout their formation. Each tiny vessel was positioned perfectly to target critical systems on the larger ships. If a fight broke out, Size wouldn't matter, not when your opponent could hit exactly where it hurt most. "Still think our fleet is too small, Admiral?" Miller asked quietly. The silence from the alien flagship was answer enough. The mighty Council fleet, with all its impressive size and power, had just learned a crucial lesson. Innovation beats intimidation every time, and the humans were about to give them an education they would never forget. Admiral Thex made his first major mistake of the battle when he ordered his fleet to open fire. The massive Council ships lit up space with their powerful weapons, filling the void with enough energy to destroy a small moon. But they hit nothing. "All human ships, execute combat protocol," Miller commanded from the bridge of the Swift Strike. His voice was calm, as if he were conducting a routine training exercise. "Show them what wolf packs can do." The 50 human ships split into their practiced groups of 5. Each wolf pack targeted a specific enemy vessel, moving with the kind of precision that could only come from countless hours of training combined with advanced AI support. On the Council flagship's bridge, chaos erupted. "Admiral," a panicked officer shouted, "3 human ships just passed through our forward shields." "Impossible," Thex roared. "No ship can penetrate our shield matrix." But the impossible was happening right before his eyes. The human vessels hadn't actually passed through the shields. They had analyzed the shield frequency and found the millisecond gaps in the energy pattern. Their AI systems timed their movements perfectly, slipping through defenses that had been considered impenetrable for centuries. The first real strike came from Wolfpack Alpha. 5 human ships coordinated their attack on a Council heavy cruiser. The alien vessel was massive, nearly 50 times larger than any single human ship. But size didn't help when your opponent could target your engines with surgical precision. "Hull breach detected in Section 7. The Council cruiser's captain reported in panic. "They've hit our main power conduits." Miller watched as his ships executed their battle plan perfectly. "Notice we're not trying to destroy their ships," he commented to his bridge crew. "Just disable them. Aim for weapons, engines, and shield generators only." The human strategy became clear. Their ships darted in and out of the Council fleet's formation, striking critical systems with precise shots before moving on to their next target. It was like watching a swarm of bees attacking a group of bears. The larger animals had all the strength, but couldn't move fast enough to defend themselves. "Sir," West reported from her tactical station, "Wolfpack Delta reports their target is disabled. Wolfpack Beta has neutralized their target's main weapons. Charlie Pack is moving to engage." On his flagship, Admiral Thex watched in horror as his mighty fleet fell into disarray. His ships were firing at shadows, while the human vessels struck with impunity. Every time his gunners thought they had a lock on a human ship, it would already be gone, moving on to its next target. "Order the fleet to tighten formation," Thex commanded desperately. "If we stay close together, they can't slip through our defenses." It was exactly what Miller had been waiting for. "All wolf packs, execute maneuver Theta," he ordered. "Let's show them why bunching up their ships is a bad idea." The human vessels responded instantly. Each wolf pack took position around the now clustered alien fleet. Their movements were so perfectly synchronized that it looked like they were connected by invisible strings. "Admiral," one of Thex's officers said in a shaking voice, "the human ships, they're all targeting our shield generators. If they hit them simultaneously." Before he could finish his sentence, 50 precision strikes hit 50 different Council ships at exactly the same moment. Shield generators exploded across the fleet, leaving the massive vessels exposed. "First phase complete," Miller announced to his crews. "Now for Phase 2. All ships, prepare for close-quarters combat." The human vessels accelerated again, but this time they didn't retreat after striking. Instead, they began weaving between the Council ships, using the larger vessels as cover against their allies' weapons. Any attempt by the Council fleet to fire on the human ships now risked hitting their own vessels. Admiral Thex watched as his perfect formation dissolved into chaos. His mighty fleet, which had never known defeat, was being systematically taken apart by ships he had dismissed as too small to be a threat. And Captain Miller's voice came over the comm once more. "Admiral, this is your last chance to surrender before we start targeting more than just your weapons and shields." The battle was far from over, but its outcome was already becoming clear. The age of massive warships was ending, and humanity's tiny fleet was writing the first chapter of a new era in space warfare. The once proud Council fleet was in shambles. 30 of their largest ships drifted powerless in space, their weapons and engines disabled by precise human strikes. The rest of the fleet struggled to defend against enemies they could barely track, let alone hit. Admiral Thex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His remaining ships were reporting critical system failures across the board. The human vessels had destroyed no ships. They didn't need to. Instead, they had turned his mighty war fleet into floating hulks of useless metal. "Admiral," his second-in-command reported, voice shaking, "the human ships, they're learning our patterns." It was true. Every time the Council fleet tried a new tactic, the human ships adapted instantly. Their AI systems analyzed each response, predicted each move, and countered it before it could be completed. What started as a devastating attack was becoming a masterclass in space warfare. On the swift strike, Captain Miller watched his fleet execute maneuvers that would have been impossible just minutes ago. "Status report," he ordered. "Sir," West replied with pride in her voice, "our AI systems have mapped out every weakness in their ship designs. We're now operating at 97% tactical efficiency. No casualties on our side. 0 civilian casualties on theirs." Miller nodded in satisfaction. This was why humanity built small ships. They weren't just weapons. They were tools of precision. Every system was designed to work in perfect harmony, allowing for split-second decisions and perfect coordination. "Look," Miller pointed to the tactical display. "Their ships keep trying to use the same defensive formations they've probably used for centuries. They don't understand that those tactics were designed for fighting other big ships." A new voice cut through the comm channel. Admiral Thex, but not speaking to the humans this time. His transmission to his fleet had been intercepted. "All ships, emergency protocol. Fall back tow." He'd never finished the order. 5 human ships suddenly appeared around his flagship, moving so perfectly in sync that they looked like a single unit. Their weapons targeted the flagship's communication array, bridge shields, and primary power systems simultaneously. In the space of 3 seconds, the mighty flagship of the Council fleet went dark. "Additional enemy ships approaching from Sector 7, West announced. Council reinforcements." Miller studied the new arrivals. 15 more massive vessels jumping in from faster-than-light travel. Under normal circumstances, such reinforcements would turn the tide of battle. Today, they were just more targets. "Let's show them what we've learned," Miller commanded. "All wolf packs, implement your AI's tactical improvements. Execute attack pattern Sigma." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The human ships moved in ways that defied conventional space combat doctrine. They used the disabled Council ships as shields, transformed their tight formation into a fluid, ever-changing pattern, and struck with even greater precision than before. The Council reinforcements never even got a chance to fire their weapons. "Sir," West reported, "enemy ships are powering down their weapons. They're surrendering." On the main screen, Admiral Thex's image appeared again. The proud alien commander looked shaken, his earlier arrogance replaced by a mix of fear and respect. "Captain Miller," he said quietly, "I wish to discuss terms." Miller allowed himself a small smile. "Wise choice, Admiral. But first, I want you to understand something. We didn't build small ships because we couldn't build big ones. We built them this way because it was better. While you focused on size, we focused on skill. While you relied on power, we perfected precision." The tactical display showed the result of this philosophy. 50 small human ships had completely neutralized a fleet of over 200 massive council vessels. Not a single ship had been destroyed. Not a single life had been lost. It was the most one-sided victory in council history, and it had been achieved by the fleet they had mocked as too small to be a threat. Now, Admiral, Miller continued, shall we discuss humanity's place in the galaxy? As equals this time. The battle was over. The era of the massive warships had ended not with a bang, but with the quiet precision of humanity's tiny fleet. 2 weeks after the battle, the council chamber looked very different from the day they had first discussed the human problem. Gone was the laughter. Gone were the jokes about ship size. Instead, 30 alien representatives sat in respectful silence as they watched recordings of the battle for the 100th time. Captain Miller stood before them, now wearing the newly created rank insignia of Earth Fleet Admiral. Beside him, Admiral Thex, who had surprisingly become one of humanity's strongest supporters, pointed to the tactical display. As you can see, Thex explained to his fellow council members, the human victory was not luck. It was not a trick. It was the result of a completely different way of thinking about space warfare. The display showed one of the human wolf packs executing a perfect attack run. The 5 small ships moved like dancers, slipping through shields, striking vital systems, and vanishing before the larger ships could respond. In all our years of space travel, Thex continued, we believed bigger meant better. We built our ships larger and larger, adding more weapons, more armor, more shields. He paused, looking around the chamber. The humans proved us wrong. Miller stepped forward. What my fleet demonstrated was not just superior technology, but a superior philosophy. You built your ships to showcase power. We built ours to achieve objectives. The council president, who had approved the original ultimatum to Earth, spoke up. And yet you chose not to destroy our ships when you could have. Why? Because destruction wasn't our objective, Miller replied simply. Our goal was to demonstrate that humanity deserves to be treated as equals, not to start a war. If we had destroyed your ships, we would have created enemies. Instead, we proved our point while preserving lives. A murmur of approval ran through the chamber. Several representatives nodded in agreement. It was one thing to show superior combat capability. It was another entirely to show such restraint while doing so. The vote before us today, the Council President announced, is whether to accept Earth as a full member of the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges thereof. Before we vote, Admiral Miller has one more thing to share with us. Miller activated a small device, and a new hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed the designs for a new type of ship, one that combined human innovation with council technology. We propose a joint project, Miller explained. Our engineers have already figured out how to adapt our AI systems and miniaturize technology to your existing ships. We can help you upgrade your fleets, not to make them more destructive, but to make them more effective. The chamber erupted in excited discussion. The possibility of upgrading their existing ships with human technology was more than just a military advantage. It was a revolution in space travel itself. And in return, someone asked. Knowledge, Miller replied. Your species have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. You have accumulated wisdom that would take us centuries to learn on our own. We offer an exchange, our innovation for your experience. The vote was unanimous. Earth would join the Council as a full member, and the exchange of technology would begin immediately. As the chamber cleared, Admiral Thex approached Miller. You know, he said thoughtfully, when I first saw your tiny fleet, I thought you were primitives playing at being a spacefaring race. I've never been happier to be wrong. Miller smiled. The funny thing is, we knew exactly what you would think when you saw our ships. Humanity has a long history of being underestimated. We've learned to use that to our advantage. And the term tiny fleet, Thex asked. It was used as an insult at first, but now it's a reminder, Miller finished. A reminder that appearances can be deceiving, that innovation beats intimidation, and that sometimes the smallest opponent can teach the biggest lessons. As they looked out at the stars through the chamber's massive window, both military leaders could see council ships and human vessels moving together in space. The huge alien ships now had small human vessels accompanying them, teaching them new ways to move, new ways to think about space travel. The age of the massive warships wasn't ending after all. It was evolving, guided by the wisdom of a species that had learned long ago that true power comes not from size, but from how you use what you have. The tiny fleet had changed the galaxy forever, and this was just the beginning.